Right now, the United States military is enforcing a strict naval blockade on Iran. With 3 aircraft carriers and over 200 fighter jets positioned in the region, the external pressure on the Iranian regime has reached a boiling point. But to understand how Iran is reacting to this massive external threat, you have to look past the warships and look inside a highly restricted medical room in Tehran, where the nation's absolute ruler, Ali Khamenei, is completely isolated. Recent intelligence reports confirm that Khamenei sustained severe injuries during a previous strike. Over the last 2 months, his leg has required 3 separate surgeries, and he will likely rely on a prosthetic moving forward. Severe burns to his face and lips have also made it extremely difficult for him to speak. Compounding this physical paralysis is a deep systemic paranoia. Terrified of Israeli electronic surveillance, the regime has strictly banned anyone from texting, emailing, or using digital communication to reach the Supreme Leader. So how does an autocracy run without phones or computers? Through handwritten notes. Any decision requiring the Supreme Leader's input must be written on paper, handed to a courier, and driven across the city on a motorbike. The courier then waits for a handwritten reply and drives it back. At the exact moment Iran faces its most severe military and economic squeeze in decades, its absolute center of power is physically immobilized and communicating at the speed of the 1800s. Iran's central authority has fractured into a board of directors. Khamenei relies on an inner circle of advisors, where decisions require a unanimous vote. But the military is exploiting this. Senior IRGC commanders use this unanimous vote requirement to veto civil authorities and seize operational control. To consolidate power, the IRGC has launched an aggressive purge of civil diplomats. They recently placed several high-ranking officials under house arrest, including the Speaker of the Parliament and the head of Iran's negotiating team. That lead negotiator was targeted specifically because he traveled to Pakistan and attempted to include the nuclear issue in talks with Washington without securing military permission first. Hardline military figures are quickly filling these vacant seats. These are men who publicly despise negotiations, openly referring to the ousted civil diplomats as coup plotters in front of the Iranian public. This power grab is wrapped in intense regime paranoia. Just this week, the judiciary carried out hurried, evidence-free executions of a 24-year-old student who participated in January protests, alongside a former employee of Iran's own nuclear agency. The Iranian government is no longer negotiating as a unified state. A desperate military faction has hijacked the steering wheel, and they are making their own rules. This internal takeover is happening exactly as the external pressure crushes the regime's finances. The U.S. naval blockade has already successfully intercepted and turned around 34 commercial ships attempting to reach Iranian ports. This animation shows what we call the petroclock. Because oil exports have halted, Iran's onshore oil storage facilities are rapidly nearing their maximum capacity. They have crude oil pumping out of the ground and nowhere left to put it. Out of sheer desperation, Iran is bringing aging, retired oil tankers back out to sea. They aren't using them to ship oil past the blockade. They are simply using them as massive, floating storage containers anchored off the coast. The regime is terrified of what happens when these tanks are full. Shutting down their aging oil wells will inflict permanent damage on the physical infrastructure, instantly destroying 5 to 10% of their total drilling capacity, simply from the shutdown cycle. The IRGC relies entirely on the revenue from this oil to fund its operations. That money pays regular soldiers' salaries, the personnel manning checkpoints, and local militias used for muscle. If the oil stops, the paychecks stop. And the last thing the IRGC can afford right now is a mutiny, where unpaid armed security forces turn their weapons on the regime. The military isn't seizing government control from a position of strength. They are acting out of a ticking financial panic. They need to force a deal before the oil tanks overflow and their own soldiers revolt. This financial panic explains the sudden, frantic diplomatic flight of Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi. Operating under the IRGC's new directives, he has embarked on a rushed multi-country tour to secure a lifeline. His first destination is Islamabad, Pakistan. Because direct talks with Washington are frozen, Pakistan is currently the lead regional mediator, and Araghchi needs to urgently establish a framework for survival negotiations. Next on the itinerary is Oman. By engaging the Omani government, Iran is pushing a strategic goal to gain joint sovereign control over the Strait of Hormuz, a crucial waterway they hope to use as a bargaining chip against the U.S. blockade. His final planned stop is Moscow. Back in 2015, Russia served as the primary depository for Iran's enriched uranium stockpiles. IRGC knows that any agreement signed under this much military pressure is fragile. He is likely seeking a guarantee from Moscow to ensure that if Iran makes concessions, the deal actually holds. Iran is fighting a two-front war. On the borders, they are boxed in by a U.S. military blockade, and inside the capital, the government is fracturing under a military takeover. A cornered regime with a collapsing economy and nuclear capabilities is highly unpredictable, and the clock on their oil storage is running out.